Hello everyone, and welcome back to our channel. Today we're diving into a story that is shaking up South Africa's political landscape, and it's all about the African National Congress Youth League, better known as the ANCYL, and their insistence that land reform and economic transformation remain at the very center of the country's ongoing national dialogue. Now, if you thought this so-called national dialogue was just going to be another polite tea party where politicians exchange speeches and then pack up without real outcomes, well, the Youth League is here to tell you, absolutely not. They're making it clear that if the conversation doesn't deal with the land question and the economy, then it's not worth their time. So let's unpack this. The second
who are aligned to the ANC and ANC Youth League represent all youth interest. But it would be irresponsible to say political parties and the youth in political parties must not have influence in the process because they've got constituencies that they support and fight for. We must bring together. Our job as the Youth League is to unite all organizations. That's why we've started a process of engaging youth from different political parties, whether it's the DA, the EFF, and everyone else, to bring them together. This, what must unite us is to address the injustices of the past. Our people are still in squatter camps. Our people are not participating in the economy. Youth unemployment is high. Export quotas are not yet introduced. Our raw material resources are leaving the country as raw as they are to go and revive other industries elsewhere. We must
Expropriation without compensation, that's a phrase that always stirs heated emotions. Some call it long overdue justice for centuries of dispossession. Others see it as a threat to property rights and economic stability. And yet, for the Youth League, it's not up for debate. To them, it's a cornerstone of economic freedom. Ngudle basically said, if this dialogue ignores land, then it's ignoring the lived reality of millions of young people still stuck on the margins. The timing of this statement is also important. The national dialogue was meant to be a unifying platform, a way of getting government, civil society, and political actors together to map out a shared vision for South Africa's future. But critics have already been saying it risks becoming just another expensive conference with pretty speeches but no teeth. You know the type, leaders shaking hands, taking photos, and then flying off in their luxury cars while ordinary people are left asking, what was the point? The Youth League clearly doesn't want to play that game. They're drawing a line in the sand and saying, no substance, no support. Now, let's talk about the deeper significance of this. The ANCYL has always played a tricky role inside the ANC. On the one hand, it's seen as the party's radical voice, pushing bold ideas that the main body often avoids. But on the other hand, it has historically been a breeding ground for leaders who later rise to the top. Think of figures like Nelson Mandela, Walter Sisulu, and even Julius Malema before he broke away to form the EFF. When the Youth League talks tough, it's not just youthful energy, it's often a sign of where South African politics could be headed in the next decade. And this is why analysts are paying attention. The Youth League is insisting that structural economic change must be on the table, and by structural they mean rethinking the entire distribution of wealth and opportunity. In South Africa today, unemployment remains stubbornly high, particularly among the youth. Inequality is still one of the highest in the world, and ownership of land and capital remains heavily skewed. For young people, it feels like the promises of 1994 never fully materialized. And so, Ngudle's warning is hitting a nerve. This isn't just rhetoric, it's frustration boiling over. Of course, there's humor in all this too. You can almost imagine the organizers of the national dialogue saying, okay everyone, let's keep it calm, let's talk about unity, reconciliation, and maybe throw in a poem or two about nation building. And then the Youth League storms in and says, nope. Where's the land? Where's the economy? If it's not on the menu, we're not eating. It's like someone being invited to a braai, only to find out there's no meat, just lettuce, and then flipping the table. That's essentially the mood here. But humor aside, this is a very serious intervention. If the Youth League feels ignored, it could delegitimize the entire process. And in a country where political legitimacy is already fragile, that's risky. Young people make up the majority of the population, and if they believe that dialogues, summits, and national conversations don't address their core issues, then we could see growing alienation from formal politics. That alienation often translates into either protests on the streets, or more support for breakaway parties like the EFF or the new formations popping up almost every election cycle. So where does this leave the ANC leadership? They're in a tight spot. On one hand, they want to present the national dialogue as inclusive and forward-looking. On the other, they know that going too far on land expropriation or nationalization risks spooking investors and reigniting international criticism. It's the same balancing act they've been trying to pull off for years, appease the youth and grassroots with promises of radical change, while reassuring business and international allies that nothing too radical will actually happen. The problem is, you can sit on two chairs forever without falling. In the weeks ahead, the real test will be whether the national dialogue actually integrates these radical demands, or whether it tiptoes around them to avoid controversy. If it's the latter, we might see the Youth League digging in further and perhaps even threatening boycotts. And don't forget, the ANCYL has a long history of influencing the direction of the mother body, sometimes with dramatic consequences. At the end of the day, the Youth League's message is simple: South Africa cannot afford another round of polite conversations that lead nowhere. The people want outcomes. They want land reform that's real, not theoretical. They want an economy that includes them, not one that's locked up in the hands of a few. And they want leaders who don't just talk but act. Whether the national dialogue will rise to that challenge remains to be seen. So, what do you think? Should land expropriation and radical economic transformation be the central focus of South Africa's political debates right now? Or should the country take a more cautious, step-by-step approach? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell so you never miss an update. That's all for today's deep dive into the ANC Youth League's fiery intervention in the national dialogue. Thank you for watching, and as always, stay engaged, stay informed, and stay questioning. See you next time.